what do you have to say to those, including MPs in the House of Commons, who see in your use of the term Great Reset evidence of some sort of grand plot? What do you have to say to this sort of conspiracy theory out on social media now?
I think we're in a time of anxiety where people are looking for reasons for things that are happening to them, that the difficult moments we're in. It's nice to be able to try and find someone to blame, something to point to, something to get mad at. I think we're seeing a lot of people fall prey to disinformation. And if Conservative MPs and others want to start talking about conspiracy theories, well, that's their choice. I'm going to stay focused on helping Canadians get through this, on learning lessons from this pandemic, and making sure that the world we leave to our kids is even better than the world we inherited from our parents.
She took this shot because she wanted to plan a trip for her 40th birthday in February. That's the only reason she took it. And she booked her appointment for the shot 8 times and canceled 8 times and finally got it on the 9th time. She woke up Saturday morning, it was like a freight train hit her. She was puking profusely, lost control of her bowels. It just intensified. So Sunday morning she woke up, her and her boyfriend woke up, they were getting ready for her day. She was fumbling all over her bed, the bedroom. She was so delirious and disoriented, kind of like signs of a stroke. But when Jolene was brought into the hospital, she was still conscious. And there was blood pooling behind her eyes and what appeared to be unexplained bruising all over her body, as it caused her heart stopped twice, and then her organs began to fail, and she passed away around 8:30 p.m. on Sunday, October 17th. I'm here and she's not, and she left 4 beautiful children behind.
Our children are my godchildren. It is my right that I have to stick up and fight for them.
So if you're not being told adverse reactions or what could possibly happen to your body, even up into death, then you're not being informed. So a lot of people are taking this blindly and not realizing she's not a statistic. She was someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's cousin, best friend. Her name was Jolene. I traveled over 6 hours to be here. Not because I wanted to shame anybody who wanted to take this shot, but to see the other side of the coin. All I want is us Canadians, as fellow human beings, to come together and once and for all be unified, right? Because it's disgusting to see how divided we become.
If God out of the equation, we lost everything.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Benita Pedersen, and I am the host tonight at Edmonton Freedom Central, and we're so glad you can join us. Please take a moment right now to share out this broadcast, because what you're going to learn today is information you are going to want to share with your entire network. So if you share out this broadcast right now, you're not just doing me a favor, you're doing yourself and many others a favor. The theme tonight is important documents. And one of the important documents we're going to be talking about is the notice of liability. This is a very useful tool, and you'll be hearing in a bit from Tanya Gaw of Action for Canada. Now, first, I must tell you about a couple of things. And one of them is that here at Edmonton Freedom Central, we're looking for sponsors to help support the show. So if you like, you can just donate to the show. Or if you have a business you would like to see promoted, you can let us know and we can accommodate you. So that's one of the things we're looking for. The other thing I wanted to tell you about is some of the super exciting shows we have coming up. This Sunday, we're going to be talking about how to get motivated to take action, because we all struggle with that sometimes. And so that's the topic, how to get motivated yourself, but also how to motivate one another to take action during these trying times. So we hope you'll tune in at 7 p.m. on Sunday night for that show. On Thursday of next week, we're going to hear from Pastor Artur Pawlowski. And again, that show is at 7 p.m. Thursday next week. So we hope that you will join us for that. Now, take a moment right now and share this video. Share it on your personal page. Share it perhaps on a couple of group pages. Maybe there's a anything goes page you're a part of, or a discussion page. Share it out there. Maybe there's a buy and sell page that won't bar you for sharing something like this. Because in a sense, we're selling something. We're selling ideas. So please take a moment and share out this page. Our goal here at Edmonton Freedom Central is to get the truth out there. We've seen it many times. Our Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, tells lies. And we have to work extra hard now to get the truth out there. So that's one of the objectives here at Edmonton Freedom Central, get the truth out there. Another one of our objectives is to encourage you to attend freedom events, support freedom events and freedom endeavors of different natures, because we're all in this together and we need to work together more. So if you'd like to support Edmonton Freedom Central in some way, perhaps it's with your skills, please reach out to us. We need more partners. One of the things, of course, we need is people to share our social media posts. So, for example, sharing this video right now is one example of that. But as you visit the page each day, make a point of sharing the posts from the page so we can help build the page. We're looking to make Edmonton Freedom Central a hub of information. We want it to be the go-to place for anybody who's freedom-minded in the Edmonton and area. In fact, we would love to serve all of Northern Alberta, maybe even Central Alberta. And if we have guests from Southern Alberta, so be it. That you're welcome to be here. And we, of course, welcome our guests from out of province as well. Thank you for your support and by visiting and supporting this page. For those of you who don't yet know me, my name is Benita Pedersen, and on February 4th of this year, I completely committed myself to the freedom movement. And since February 4th, I've been giving my time, energy, money, equipment, resources, skills, and I've committed it all to the freedom movement. And the predominant way that I've assisted the freedom movement is through organizing and helping with rallies. Well, now I'm transitioning and I'm doing podcasts and some other activities. So I appreciate your continued support as I go about this, especially because now I'm facing extra legal action. So thank you for your support. Sometimes I need a little support and encouragement too. So thank you so much. When I founded All Fired Up for Freedom on February 4th, I created an objective. And that objective is that we work for the protection and restoration of rights and freedoms. And tonight, our first guest, Tanya Gaw, who is the founder of Action for Canada, has an interesting mission statement for this grassroots nonprofit organization. Action for Canada is committed to upholding the Canadian Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I'm so pleased to have Tanya Gaw as our guest. She's a committed Christian, a defender of faith, family, and freedom, and she has a deep love for our nation. Please welcome Tanya Gaw. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Benita. It's good to be here. Yeah, I'm excited about always having these conversations and imparting truth and knowledge and sharing that with people. I always say knowledge is power, and when you have it, you got to share it. You got a responsibility to share it, because the truth is what will set us free.
I agree with you completely. And that's why I felt compelled to do rallies. We had to start sharing the truth, and not just me, all the other voices too, different people getting up to speak. Have you had any involvement in rallies?
Oh, yeah, I have a bit of a history with it, but I had to kind of back away from doing the rallies, and because of the amount of work that was associated with the COVID-19 scam. And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Action for Canada, and I've been at this for over 6 years, since Justin Trudeau was campaigning for office. I'd never been active previously. I'd always voted and did my civic duty, but as far as being considered an activist or politically minded, it wasn't even on my radar. And so back in 2018, when Justin Trudeau was signing the Global Compact on Migration and Sustainable Development Goals, in December of 2018, we started the Overpass rallies across the country, but I started them here in BC. And it was really amazing to watch. The Yellow Vests were really involved back then. They saw in France, and they brought some of that to Canada. And I kind of miss them, because, you know, they were really committed across the nation to being out on those overpasses. I wasn't Yellow Vest, but we had created the Overpass rallies here in BC. And, you know, eventually, you know, people just didn't understand how serious the offense was against Canadians and the attack that the Liberal government had commenced against us. And so the Global Compact on Migration, of course, is a big UN deal, Agenda 2130, and it would remove our borders, take over our resources. You see what's happening to Alberta. I mean, this has been going on for years, and we were trying to ring the bell and let people know. I ended up through it meeting other people from other great organizations since 2015, when I got started on this, until currently. And so before COVID hit, I was fairly well established as far as having an understanding of what the government was doing, chipping away at our freedoms and the UN's involvement in that. And so, yeah, so as far as overpass rallies were concerned, I continued to do those, rain, sleet, snow, every Saturday. And it was basically 4 of us would be on a rally with my big Trudeau must go sign that was bright neon yellow with black print. And on the freeway, the Highway 1 here in Surrey, people initially would come by, and the majority, like lots of them, would give us the finger. And I'm just like, they have no idea, you know, what's happening and what this man is going to do to this nation. And, you know, gave him a year in office, and then up to the next election. And wouldn't you know, we were getting more thumbs up. And then we were getting the big honks, and, you know, people driving down the freeway. Everything was shifting, but not enough to get this man out of office. So COVID has come along, and people are getting back out and rallying in the streets. And it is absolutely an essential public display to tell the government we do not agree with these tyrannical orders and the unlawfulness of it. So rallying in the streets, writing, and just, I love what you're saying, is just say no. No more compliance.
Just say no. I love that. Yeah, I have Chris Sky's book, of course, so I'm somewhat inspired. And he's going to be an Edmonton area.
I don't follow him, so I didn't know. I've always been saying it, just say no, people. So
just say no. Just say no. Well, I just want to applaud you, Tanya. You may have seen during one of our introductory videos the story about Jolene. And every time I hear Jolene's story, I always think about the importance of our work. Our work is so incredibly important. And Jolene was someone who took the injection, and she passed 4 days later. And so these stories have to be told, first of all. But what's even more important to me is that we take action in some way. And I've heard a lot about the notice of liability. I've heard people talk about it often, but I hadn't yet tried it, and I don't yet understand it. And so that's why I invited you to be on the show. So first of all, can you tell us, why should someone consider using the notice of liability?
Well, because the notice of liability, it just clearly stipulates what your rights are. And it's basically what you're doing is you're giving the person that you are serving it to a notice to cease and desist their illegal and unlawful activity. And then the document provides the reasons why. And so, first of all, on the notice of liability, we're here to, address the one about the employer tonight. So we're saying you're unlawfully practicing medicine by prescribing, recommending, incentivizing, advertising, I can't remember the whole line, the experimental injection referred to as COVID-19. V word. I don't know if you use the word on here, so be careful. I know Odessa doesn't. I'll try. I'll rise to this challenge tonight. And so then what we step into, when I was creating this, I thought, well, wait a minute. They're going to turn around right away and say, oh, but there's all these cases. And, the government says that we're in this pandemic. So I thought first thing to address is the PCR test. And so you'll notice at the beginning of the notice liability, I say, first of all, they say that we're, in this emergency, but actually we're not. And we touch on the PCR testing. And there was like, every time I got a report from anywhere around the world, I would pop that into a folder because I didn't know when I was going to need these materials. And so if you want to just keep scrolling down, Phil, we'll go to, so to begin with, it says right there, the emergency measures are based on the claim that we're experiencing a public health emergency. There is no evidence to substantiate this claim. In fact, the evidence indicates that we're experiencing a rate of infection consistent with the normal influenza season. And so if we take a look at Health Canada's website, we can see that I think they're saying there's 29,000 deaths in 2 years. That's 2 seasons. When do they ever count deaths from an influenza season?
Exactly. And this is great material, by the way, because I might use this in my defense since I'm fighting off 10 tickets. So thank you for this.
Right. Yeah. So if we want to go back to that, so that's, we're trying to spark a little bit of critical thinking, right? So you go to Health Canada's website and they're telling us it's not a pandemic. And so we're challenging people here. And then we go, the purported increase in cases is, of course, in direct relation to the PCR testing. Then I say how this is being used fraudulently. We talk about Carrie Mullis. We provide the links where Carrie Mullis says that it was never meant to test for coronavirus. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, where he says very clearly that you can find almost the same molecule in anybody's body if you turn the amplification up high enough. And then I proceed with in that last paragraph there, about 10 different cases where and reports where they are exposing that the PCR test is not reliable and that it was never meant to be used to test for coronavirus, and that at higher amplifications, of course, they're going to find this molecule. And I love it. Manitoba was forced into a recent action back in the summer, and the JCCF had brought in some expert witnesses on the PCR testing, which forced the Manitoba government to do the same. The Manitoba's own government, before the Queen bench, he gives testimony that the PCR test was never meant to test for coronavirus and that it's unreliable. And I don't know how they ended up, we were like, okay, this is the first domino that's going to come down. I'm not going to critique the JCCF on their case, but I mean, that should have been a home run after that. And how the Manitoba government turned around and really dismissed that very critical piece of evidence was disheartening. And so many of you, I hope that you know that Action for Canada, I commenced legal action against the BC and federal government, and we filed our statement of claim in August, a 391-page statement of claim, and Rocco Galati is our lawyer. And a big part of our case is to take down this PCR test. He has the top world-renowned expert witnesses on this. And this is what's important. By the time we get into court, it's going to have a solid impact. And that's the problem, is a lot of good-hearted people are going to court right now without any experts. And the result is that the judge is saying, well, the experts, from the health officer is very compelling. What have you got? And of course, these people aren't coming up with compelling evidence, and we're not going to get into that trap. So the rest of the report, it ends up addressing the vaccines and how they're experimental and they're in the trial phases. And normally it should be about up to 10 years before a vaccine is approved. We know that this isn't a vaccine. And then, of course, was it not Dr. Bridle? Dr. McCullough had very clearly said that historically, if there was a new vaccination, that it would go through trials and testing. But if there was 50 deaths, it would be pulled from the market immediately. And I mean, when we go look at the VAERS report, which is supported by the CDC's own findings in the United States, which is all very much underreported, they're showing plus 18,000 deaths in the States. So we know this is a genocide. We know this is murder. And so as a employer is reading through this, they're getting educated. We're providing the evidence of the medical side of it. Then as you keep going down, we're going to see where we bring up the criminal code. There's extortion, intimidation, assault and battery. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they're trying to get away with here in mandating vaccination. And then speaking of mandating vaccination, on page 5, it clearly states that vaccines cannot be mandated in Canada because we're protected under the Constitution. And so that's basically what the document is. And people say, I let people know Action for Canada does not provide a legal service. These are not legal documents. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a medical professional. What I am is a person that purveys the truth. I am going to speak about the truth that is embedded in our Constitution, our Charter of Rights, and our rule of law. And I've taken all those truths and I've put them into a document, and we are providing this to an employer to compel them to cease and desist because what they're doing is unlawful. Now, the incredibly other important document that I released about 3 weeks ago is on the notice of liability page. So Phil, if we could go to the notice of liability page, you can find this in 2 sections on Action for Canada, either under call to action or under COVID-19 in the menu. So if you want to just click on notice of liability. And I hope you guys will all take a look at this page, because I am having amazing reports from across the country, parents getting the masks off their kids, employees who have served their employer and keeping their job. It's just been phenomenal. All right, so if we scroll down, just scrolling down, right? Okay, so it is going to cover a few things. First of all, yeah, keep going down a little bit more. We're going to get to that advanced medical directive right here. This is a bit of a sidetrack from the notice of liability, but I think it's critical that anybody on here print this off. Let's click on that and let's take a look at it. So if you are concerned about being in a car accident, for instance, and you get rushed to emergency, I know that I have several people that have given me firsthand testimonies. They went in for emergency surgery. As they were recovering and waking up, the nurse came in and said, "Are you ready for your shot?" And they thought they were approving to have pain medication, and instead they were giving them the jab. And so this card is taped to your medical health card. And we're saying tape it to it because we know it's proof that they would have to untape it in order to get your care card number. And it says, in case of an emergency, I, Joe Blogs, do not consent to any COVID-19 vaccination, testing, ventilator, or remdesivir, as is my right. It is an indictable offense to violate my right to refuse these treatments or to withhold any medical care because of it. If I need treatment for COVID-19, I insist the treating physician use effective alternatives such as antivirals. You can see the rest there, ivermectin and inhalers. And we provide the Math Plus QR code. And then on the back of this card, when you actually click into the link, it says this is your official notice of liability. And so on the back of this little card, we're holding them liable for what it is that they're about to do if they don't follow what your request is. So please print those off and attach it to your care card if you wish. Alrighty, we'll go back to the notice of liability page. And along to your employer, many of you are ending up being told, well, you don't have to vaccinate, but you're going to have to test 3 to 5 times a week. Well, as we know, COVID testing is and is illegal. It's an indictable offense. If you keep scrolling down on this page, there it is, COVID testing. And so this is a notice of liability against forced COVID testing. And the warning letter is the Genetic Discrimination Act. It's just a little bit more detail about it, that if these guys that read the notice of liability against forced testing, they're going to be lazy and they're not going to go into the Genetic Discrimination Act. So I put a few of the details into that warning letter and letting them know that it's an indictable offense, 3 to 5 years in prison and up to $1 million fine. And I think your employer needs to know about that. Your HR person, your union, it's absolutely diabolical what they're doing in insisting that you get to take a test. Now, some will say, oh, it's not a DNA testing. They're testing your genetic material. I don't know how much closer we get to DNA than testing your genetic material. It 100% is unlawful. Don't comply. Now we get into the good stuff, the notices of liability. And because we're going to be here for the business notice of liability today, I'll only bring to your attention that these are wonderful resources and notice of liability to make sure you protect your children and get the masks off your kids. You can review those. We're having great success for parents who are brave enough to use them. And that additional letter here as well, that's in new, says additional vax mandate letter of response. I'm going to cover the one, nope, up above. The one this is a very broad letter, and I'm going to cover it in the employee one, but people were saying, well, you've done an employee one. How can I protect myself? My child wants an education in college, and they're saying, that they have to vax. I can't get into a sports arena. I can't get an essential service. I can't get into a hospital. This is a very powerful document. But it's pretty verbatim in the employee one. So now we're going to get into the good stuff and what you wanted to cover tonight, Benita. And so the employer notice of liability, as I just said, it is advising the employer of all of the information to say why what they're doing could lead to liability. So this is just a bit of an instructional page, and then we go down and say, there's the take action, and then we say, print the notice of liability, fill in the name, and give you a bit of instruction. And the PDF, of course, is at the top in blue. All right, so if we go back to the notice of liability page, and then now if we could go into that employee further letter of response. Oh, sorry, just before you go as well, if you're in a union, the union notice of liability is right there as well. The letter I'm going to take you into right now, this letter needs to be delivered to your employer and the union. Any notice of liability you're writing to which involves your employment, you should use this letter. Now let's scoot down. This is just sort of an introductory page. Let's get down to the good stuff. And the reason I call this the drop the mic letter, I wish I'd written this one 6 months ago. I mean,
I love the term drop the mic. That sounds good to me.
Boom. We're done. Conversation over. Why are we having this conversation? All right. So we'll get into a bit of education here. And is this good, Benita? You want me to carry on?
Oh, yes, this is great, Tanya. I'm learning so much, and your style of teaching is great. I have a hunch our viewers are enjoying this. Thank you. Keep going.
Good stuff. If you ever want to interrupt me, you just say so. I'm trying not to dart off down any rabbit holes and to stay on point because there's so much in this bean. It's hard to pick what to share. Okay. All right. So this, say it's your manager. We'll call him Bob Smith. So Bob Smith is sending you letters stating that you have to double vax or you're going to go on unpaid leave. So we're going to say, here you go, Bob Smith. This is regarding your threat to use an experimental COVID-19 injection, mask, or testing as a condition of employment. And I just added mask or testing to this because I'm like, everybody's been saying, oh, can we have a mask exemption? I'm like, we don't do mask exemptions because in order to be exempt from something, you're buying into what they're saying is actually a real thing. And there is no legislation in Canada that is a law saying you have to wear a mask. It's a complete fraud. And the reason they can't make it a law is because they can't interfere with your right to breathe freely. All right, so let's go back into that letter. So that's for a starter. And then I've already covered the testing and how it's unlawful. So that description of what this is regarding is right on. So there are no provisions in any orders of any health minister doctor, or provincial legislation that can, nor pretend that any measure can, override charter or other pre-charter constitutional rights. Just let that absorb in. Nothing that they are putting forward can interfere with your rights. Now, I'm going to build on this case. All statutes, orders, bylaws, and acts must be consistent with the Constitution, or they're of no force or effect. Section 52(1) of the Constitution Act 1982, the Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada. Let's just again absorb that. It's the supreme law of Canada, and any law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution is, to the extent of the inconsistency, of no force or effect. Can we go back to the form? I'll just be working right through that. All right. And again, listen to that, is of no force or effect. So when they're telling you you got a double jab, well, let's see how that's in violation of your Constitution. We've already shown that the testing is in violation. We've shown you the criminal code, the Genetic Non-Discrimination Act, that says this is a violation of your rights. Now, according to the Public Health Agency of Canada, Canadian National Report on Immunization 1996, on their page, still existing today, it says vaccines are not mandatory in Canada and they cannot be made mandatory because of the Canadian Constitution. Now that ties in with what I just said about Section 52(1) of the Constitution Act. So you see how we're building this case, everything's supporting one another. Vaccines are not mandatory and they can't be mandatory because you are protected under the Constitution, which is the all-powerful rule of law in Canada. If the federal government had invoked the Federal Emergency Act, which it has not, even that Emergency Act states, and whereas the governor and council in taking such special temporary measures, not 2 years, temporary measures, would be subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Canadian Bill of Rights, and must have regard to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. That's a lot of employee stuff in there, particularly with respect to those fundamental, which is guaranteed, fundamental rights that are not to be limited or abridged even in a national emergency. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the preamble of this Federal Emergency Act, but that's what it says in the Federal Emergency Act. And I'm wondering if you all know that Justin Trudeau never implemented the Federal Emergency Act because he would have lost control of this facade. He would have had to go before the legislature and demonstrably prove that we were in a pandemic. And even I bite my tongue when I say that, because pandemic is nowhere on the list of natural disasters. And the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, when they had, I've met with Honorable Brian Peckford a couple of times, and just listening to him, how passionate he is about the fact he's the last surviving architect of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I've had him on my show, and I'm having private meetings and conversations with him. He said when we created the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and they were considering that, oh, if there's an emergency, you need to prove. And they went, no, let's make it demonstrably prove that there's, a problem. And it was related to war and insurrection, not a pandemic. And even natural disaster, it involves storm and floods and things of this nature. So because of that, the UN is currently trying to implement an amendment to natural disaster to include viruses.
This is so perfect, this timing, Tanya. I just have to say, and one of the things to emphasize, of course, is how much language matters. The words you choose matter, and being specific. So I like that you point that out, demonstrably prove, right? Because anybody can make a declaration, but can you demonstrably prove it? And they haven't. They never have. So do you want me to finish up that? Yeah. Letter? Okay, Phil, can you bring me back in there? I love it. I love Phil. All right. So now we're building this case against the government. So what Justin Trudeau did is he's making backroom deal with every single corrupt premier, paying them off big time or threatening them, whichever one it is. No natural person that had an ounce of decency in them would go along with this fraud. And so at the provincial level, every single one passed an emergency act within the province, and they did it unlawfully.
because they never demonstrably proved either that we were in a pandemic. And when the system is that you not only demonstrably prove that there's an emergency, you have to have public input and debate. Did you get to go to the legislature and let them know how you felt about their draconian legislation that they were passing?
No, not until I got upset with their draconian legislature. Right. Then I headed to the legislature to try to make my viewpoint known, and it appears they're not listening.
No, and they, you know, and once they bypass legislature, let's just go up to the bottom of the first page, please, Phil. If you could scroll up just a smidgen. So the next step after the Emergency Act, a little bit more, then I go into, okay, I want to prove to you that you have the rights under the Constitution. And as Honorable Peckford said, when they created the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, they implemented into the Constitution. And the reason they did that is the Constitution has the protection of not being easily amended. And he said what they included was that in order to amend the Constitution, you need 7 out of 10 premiers being in agreement, but you need 50% of the population in order to make a change. So there's no doubt in my mind, if they had only left it up to the premiers, they would have had 10 out of 10 premiers, you know, going along with this, but they'd need 50% of the population, and they're not going to get that for whatever amendment would come. So our Canadian Charter of Rights is active, alive within the Constitution, the supreme law of Canada. And that Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Section 7 says you have the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. Security of the person is twofold in this conversation. One, the security to provide and have an income for yourself and your family. And the other portion is, of course, the security to say exactly what goes in your body, and most certainly not an experimental injection that's still on trial that we know is harming people and killing people. The next thing we do is then we go build it on a little bit more consent to medical treatment and testing. In the link there are 3 Supreme Court rulings that support what we're saying here, is that you have every right to consent to medical treatment, and you also have the right to refuse it. And Supreme Court rulings support that. If we go back to the report, now I go back down and we again touch on the Genetic Non-Discrimination Act to make sure that they know that this is an indictable offense. So now, okay, so Bob Smith is now reading through this letter that you are delivering to him because he is interfering with all of your rights and freedoms. So now we want Bob to know how serious it is that as a manager, by him trying to force these illegal orders and these indictable offenses onto you, we're telling Bob, hey, Bob, this is extortion. It's committing tort, privacy violations, willful misconduct, assault and battery. If you've happened to be coerced into taking the actual jab, that's assault and battery. Acting in bad faith are serious indictable criminal code offenses. Interfering with someone's right to gainful employment or essential and non-essential services is a further violation of the Constitution and Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I am writing to advise you that if you persist in interfering with my guaranteed rights by supporting or enforcing the COVID-19 injection, testing, mask, or any other medical treatment under threat of losing my employment or being suspended without pay, this is the important part, I will hold you personally liable for any loss of income, damages, and or injury I suffer as a result of your actions. You are personally not protected under any act, order, or statute that is in violation of the Canadian rule of law, Constitution, and Charter rights. It is the duty of every Canadian citizen to uphold the law and respect the Constitution and Charter rights. You have been duly warned.
I like it. I like the strong language.
And from what I'm hearing,
oh, this is super. This is what's needed because they've been using intimidation to push on us and strong language to push on us. So a tool like this notice of liability with strong language is a great way to push back. This is super.
And do you want to hear the successes that we're having?
Yes,
materials.
I was checking your Facebook page, and I'm so happy when I look at the Action for Canada Facebook page. I was just floored by the list. 22 school boards in British Columbia, including Chilliwack and Surrey and Abbotsford, Burnaby, Prince George, and even one in Vancouver. 22 school boards have responded to the notice of liability. So please share with us about that and other successes.
All right, super. Yeah, I'm excited about this. When I started the notice of liability, like when you said, I didn't know about notice of liability, I didn't either 7 months ago. But with all of the research and sort of legalese that I've picked up in the last 6 years, when somebody had presented, one of our team members had said, we should send something out that like a notice of liability. I'm like, what's that? And so sort of give me this bit of an outline, but we needed to be more powerful and pack a punch if people in unions were going to take this seriously. Because even at the get-go, they're saying, oh, notice of liability has no power. And, even groups that should be aligned with us were giving me a hard time. So I just shut my ears to it, put my blinders on, and I said, I'm going to do this. This is for our kids. I'd already put the mask non-consent out. We were having great success with that. And no sooner had I written that article, and next thing you know, they're mandating vaccinations for kids 12 to 17. So I got super busy in April and started creating the first official notice of liability. And we didn't have all of our chapters back then. I had about 53,000 people on my email list. And so I'd start sending out and saying, please get actively involved, help our kids, serve these to the teachers, to the school boards, to the principals, etc. And they say, oh, well, I have a really nice teacher. And I'm like, good, serve it to your teacher. Because, because it gives them, it empowers them. Well, I have a super nice manager. Good, serve your manager, because you're protecting them in doing this, and you can explain that to them. And because if their school principal comes to them and says, you're not following the vax or the whatever mandates of the school for COVID, and it's like, yeah, I've been served this notice of liability, and it says I could be personally held liable. And I want to cover that for a second, because when I say personally held liable, I had said it that we all have a duty and responsibility to uphold the law. And so when we've just spelled it out here that you're committing indictable offenses, they have to weigh their liability. And we've been such a wimpy country. I'm sorry, my fellow Canadians, a bunch of wimps, too nice, who absolutely capitulated all of their rights and handed them over 21 months ago. The government didn't take them. We handed them over because we didn't know what our rights were. And so I've been on a truth quest to help educate people, even though in the beginning, in the spring, people said, I hope you get COVID and die, because I was calling people out to rally, right? And I'm like,
I've had some of that too. I know what that feels like. Yeah.
But I'm like, water off a duck. That's okay, because I know best, because I know the truth, and I love you enough to take your abuse, and I'm going to keep telling you the truth until you believe it, right? And so the notice of liability went out, and Rocco and I, we were going through the statement of claim, through the draft, and he said to me one day in May, he said, hey, did you hear what the unions in Ontario are doing? And I said, no. And he says, they're actually sending letters to the teachers saying, don't talk about the vaccine in class. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is huge. And he says, yeah. He's had, teachers who had informed him that they were receiving this letter, because of course the big campaign was 12 to 17-year-olds don't need a parent's consent. And they were actually putting it over the PA in the schools, telling kids to come and get jabbed. It's just, like I keep saying, diabolical. So then we went from there, and then a friend of mine was being told he had to get the jab or he was going to lose his job. And I created the one for employees, and that led to the one for unions, that led to the one for elected officials, that led to the COVID-19 testing one, and it just sort of exploded. In the meantime, Action for Canada was creating our chapters. We had maybe about 10. I was in Ontario speaking at a conference in August, and we had one chapter in Niagara, and two ladies came up to me and they said, oh, we'll be chapter leaders for Toronto. And I came to my team and I says, we're going to take a detour, and I says, we are going to focus on chapters because we need our materials out across the nation. And I am very happy to tell you that in the last few months, we're at 110 chapters across Canada.
Great. This is exactly what's needed. Go, keep talking.
I love you. In the territories, in the Maritimes. And so where we had one chapter in Ontario, we have over 32 chapters, and we have 50 more people to vet and more starting. And I've met with Derek Sloan from he's creating his new party. I've had meetings with Maxime Bernier, and I said, we're going to be in all 338 ridings, but beyond that, every town and city, because we are going to take back every school board. we're going to take back every municipality, and we're going to take back our provincial and federal legislatures.
Oh, you just make me so happy, Tanya. I have to interject here because with the freedom movement, ever since I got involved, I got involved, as me with my little organization, but then there's all these other organizations, and I'm thinking like exactly what needs to be happening is there needs to be a bit of a partnership between communities. Mm-hmm. And with Action for Canada, you've created that.
Yeah.
And so you've got the bigger umbrella, Action for Canada, but then you've got all these chapters. I was just talking to Pastor Artur Pawlowski on Monday, and he's working on a special project called Solidarity. And it's a similar thing. He's looking at having, in a sense, the umbrella concept of solidarity, and then have, I don't know if he's calling them chapters, but other aspects to it in all these different communities. And then each chapter or group can work on projects together, because it's much easier to partner with someone near you than it is to partner with someone half a province away. So I just think what you're doing is fantastic. And I didn't realize it had grown that much. So congratulations.
Yeah, so keep an eye on our chapter page under Join on our website. In the menu, it says A4C chapters, and you'll take a look there. It's awesome. And oh, thank you, Phil. Yep, under Join, and then down to A4C chapters. Don't let me forget to tell you about the Workers Unite group as well. And then if you scroll down, you'll see what I'm talking about. Go see the party down below. All right, so there it is. This is the start of the list in the last few months. Keep scrolling down. Just let everybody see how this has grown from a few chapters in a matter of months. And the reason I believe Action for Canada is having such an amazing amount of success is that a year ago, we commenced the business campaign, reaching out to businesses. We have we call it Boots on the Ground Business Campaign. And so we are launching that. I've just ordered 250 materials for every single one of our chapters. And so they get 250 business cards. They get 250 of the postcard, letter and poster that we've got for business owners. So we would come into a business and say, hi, I'm from Action for Canada. I understand that, the government is really going after small businesses. We want to see how you're doing in favor of large corporations. They may say, get out, you don't have a mask on. And then we say, well, are you aware actually that you could be held liable up to $75,000 in fines for discriminating against anybody asking for them to wear a mask or asking them for their VaxPass information? And they'll go, no, I didn't know that. And so then when we engage them, we can say, hey, on Tuesdays, we have a business team meeting, and we will help you as a business owner stay open. And we've got the actual materials that if a health officer walks in and we've got proof and evidence this is working, they hold that officer to account. Basically what I've said in this drop the mic letter, saying, if you come in and interfere with my business, are you aware that you're infringing completely on my right to be open? I don't have to close down even in a pandemic. And so you need to make a decision right now. You might want to call your supervisor and see if you want to try to take away my business license or write that fine, because I'm going to come after you for any loss of business I experience and or my staff. So that's pretty weighty. And so we're doing this, and even an environmental health officer doesn't know what to do. So they're trying to say, oh, people have come in and they're filing, complaints about you. And so the business owner is going, you know what? You're continuing to hurt my business. I want a freedom of information, and I want to see who's filing complaints against me. And you know what? I might fine you further because of loss of business, because you are promoting hate towards myself and my staff and my business. And so we're teaching businesses how to take care of that. Then we've got the parent campaign, and the parent team meets on Tuesday. So our chapters as well have all the parent information to go after these school boards. And within there, we're saying, okay, start recruiting people and getting them ready to run as a school board trustee. I mean, we're really hitting this at all levels. And then, of course, we're reaching out to pastors and church community and calling in them. And then, of course, the elected officials. So as well as frontline workers, we're supporting them as well, all the way across the board. So I had Pastor Artur on the show last night. And when I was talking to him last week and he told me about this new group, I'm like, Art, we've got it all going, and we've got all the material. And so I'm actually hoping another organization, we need the numbers. And if we're going to do, because that's what I was committed to as an umbrella group. Prior to COVID, I was fighting against political Islam coming in here. I was fighting against the trans and LGBTQ UN agenda. I'm not talking about the gay and lesbian community. Their platform has been sabotaged to bring this comprehensive sexual education program into our schools. They want it worldwide, but Justin Trudeau signed on to it. And what it actually says is that teaching children you can be a boy, girl, neither, or anything in between. And I can't. Sorry, I'm in a meeting. And so, sorry, there was a phone call for me and I just can't take it right now. And so this is causing a 4,000% increase in girls coming home from school saying, Mommy, I'm no longer a girl, I'm a boy. And that if you don't support them in their dysphoria, this week, the Senate, well, actually, Trudeau had tabled a bill that he's tried the last 3 times in office, and they tabled this bill C4, and instead the House passed it straight into the Senate, and the Senate just passed it. This is such an attack against parental rights and against our children. So now they've got your kid indoctrinated and confused as to who they are in the school system. It should not be taught in our school system. Kids are coming home and saying, I'm the opposite sex, 5 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old. And now you can't bring them for counseling. You can only bring them to a gender dysphoria clinic. And if you don't, as a parent, you will now, as of I think it was passed yesterday or day before, spend 5 years in jail. Now they've got your kid, they're sterilizing her, they're putting her on pharmaceutical products for life. And this is part of the global population control. And I've been working on this since 2017, trying to bring awareness. So the reason I'm saying that is the government was chipping away at parental rights, freedom of speech through all of these other things that I was doing. But plus I was that umbrella organization fighting for gun rights and the rest of it. And so that's why I said to Pastor Art, are you sure you want to do that? Because I need hundreds of thousands of people to join Action for Canada, because all we need is 3% to turn this around.
And that's how we're going to get more powerful, is through those partnerships. So the idea of you partnering with Pastor Archer makes perfect sense to me. I'm considering partnering with Pastor Archer as well. I'll be interviewing him next week and finding out more. I have a few questions for you. I'm going to give you a whole list of questions, and then you decide what you'd like to speak to. And just so you know, there is another guest coming tonight to talk about Bill C-10 at some point. So I'm hoping you'll stick around for that later in the program. Is that okay? Bill C-10?
Depends on the time. This was sort of an urgent call that I need to address, but I'll do my best.
Oh, well, what I could do is give you a break for 10, 20 minutes. I'll chat with Todd about Bill C-10, and then you come back. Would that work for you?
Okay, what's the time right now? What are we looking at?
The time now here in Alberta is 8 p.m.
Okay. So yeah, and one thing I just want to remember is that under join as well, Benita, I just don't want to forget about this, is can we please bring attention to the Workers Unite?
Yes.
And if you can just click on that page for a minute. We will, when I come back, what I would like to talk about is when people say the notice of liability isn't working against the unions or whatever, these big corporations, what we are, as a next step, doing is we are pressing criminal charges. And David Lindsay is someone that I've known for a year and a half, and we've joined. He wrote one of the only books in Canada. There's an e-book as well on how to press criminal charges, not going through the police, but directly filing through the courts. And we already did a workshop, and we're doing another one this Sunday. And we've already commenced a few actions. And this, I believe, is going to be a humongous part of undoing this with the unions and these corporations, because we're not going after anybody in their capacity under the protection as being a union rep or the president of a company. We're holding them liable in Canada as a fellow citizen who is committing horrendous, horrific, indictable offenses. And if they continue, they are going to be complicit to murder and harm of others. Anyways, so that's what's coming up. But this is a terrific page, and I can talk about that in a few moments if you want.
Okay,
I'll disappear.
Okay, well, you take the break you need. We'll see you back in a bit whenever you can make it back. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you in a little while. My name is Benita Pedersen, and we're here on Edmonton Freedom Central. I founded All Fired Up for Freedom on February 4th of this year, and I do whatever I can to help the freedom movement. Please share this video. Share it out right now. The information we've shared already and the information to come is of very high value to you and your network. So please take a moment to share this video right now on your personal page, on your business page, your group page. Go to a couple different group pages. Maybe they're labeled anything goes or discussion. Just share it out and take a moment to do that if you don't mind, because this information needs to get out there. Now, our next guest is Todd Brown. Who is Todd Brown, you might ask? He is the founder and executive director of FIRE, Firearms Institute for Rational Education. He is also the co-founder of Concerned Gun Owners of Canada. He's been studying and writing articles on firearms law for almost 10 years. He's also a firearms, crossbow, and hunter training instructor for over 10 years. He has even written and influenced gun policy for various provincial and federal parties. A big welcome to you. Welcome, Todd. So happy to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me in. This has been great. One thing I want to just correct you on, it's Bill C2, not C10.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I should have had it written down.
No, that's okay. So when you said C10 twice, I was holding up my fingers at C2.
Oh, I couldn't see you in the back room there.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We'll have to change the formatting so I could see who's in the back room waving at me.
Yeah, I was one just before we get started. I didn't realize you could do it, but since I saw you were doing it with the previous guest, I sent you a document through Messenger, and that's
I received it, and we might be able to access it.
There we go. That is great. So when I'm talking about it, people can actually see the wording and everything on the document that I'm talking about. So I just wanted to. I figured that would be handier than me looking up everything and trying to explain it. So
okay, well, before we jump into that, Todd, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what caused you to reach out to me this week?
Well, I actually had a previous experience which I thought would be interesting to share with you and all your viewers. I spent 10 days in two central Alberta hospitals. And that was my first and foremost mission, was to let people know what was actually going on in these hospitals, and my conversations with the nurses and all that sort of thing. So we'll have to do that one another time. But after I got thinking about it, I was watching another one of your shows, and it's like, okay, there's other stuff going on that people should probably know about. This bill being introduced being one of them. So I figured with the information that I had, and you've got a platform that you're looking for people to come on, I thought it would be a good fit.
Well, it appears to be so far. I'm looking forward to learning more about it. The theme tonight is important documents. So I just spent some valuable time with Tanya Gaw talking about the notice of liability. Anybody who hasn't seen the first half of this video yet, I encourage you to take some time and watch it later, because what Tanya Gaw shared with us and what she'll share with us later on is of high value, great use to you. So what we're talking about today now with Todd Brown is about Bill C2. Todd, Can you give us the background on this and tell us why you're concerned about it?
Okay, well, number one, I will just want to back up a little bit just so people know. Number one, like Tanya, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, this is my own deciphering of the legislation. You guys go read it, make your own determination. I have been reading legislation for a long time and writing about it and trying to take the legalese and turn it into something that your regular person can understand and decipher. So I've been trying to do the same thing with this particular piece of legislation. As you said, I've also written a prolific writer of firearms policy. Just so people know, I've influenced firearms policy for the Libertarian Party of Canada. I co-wrote the firearms policy for Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada. I wrote the firearms policy for the original Wild Rose Party of Alberta, and I wrote the firearms policy for the current Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta, amongst others. So just to give you a background that I can read legislation and make some sense of it. So that being said, when I was going through any legislation I go through, the first thing I do is I look at the definitions, because as you had stated earlier with Tanya, definitions and the wording are so very important. You change a definition in legislation and it can change the whole meaning of what this means practically in law. So if you were to bring up my notes, there we go. So the first thing that I saw is that they defined what a competent authority is. Okay, so in this particular legislation, a competent authority is, number one, the government of Canada, number two, the government of a province or territory, so your provincial governments, municipalities, public health authorities, and a council or government or other entity that is authorized by the act on the behalf of indigenous people, yada, 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 all this. Now, this just seems not really important right now, but the importance of this will come up later down in some other points. Lockdown order. There's another definition. Okay, it means an order, regulation, or other instrument made by a competent authority. So here's the thing. This is where the previous definition is important, because a competent authority can authorize a lockdown order. So any one of those authorities, and I'm going to keep referring back to the federal government, that they can issue a lockdown order whenever they want, pretty much. Okay. And the lockdown order means, what happened? We lost it here.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay. It can mean imposing for reasons related to COVID-19. Now look at, they specifically stated that it's for COVID-19 among other measures. Okay, so they're just trying to, it's a CYA, cover your butt kind of moment there. Closure to the public, region specified in the order, or other instrument of premises where persons carry out commercial activities or provide services that are not essential to preserving life, health, public safety, or basic societal functioning. Now, I might ask everybody just to think about, what job out there is not essential to somebody?
Every job is essential. If it puts food on your table, that's an essential job.
There you go. So, right away, we lost it again here.
Oh, yeah, you like your visual aid, I know. Bring it back.
I do. It's the wording that is important to me, and I don't have this memorized yet. I got a good memory. It's about this long. So,
I know how that is. I received a text message from our tech man, and he's having a computer glitch, but he'll be back shortly.
Oh, so not a problem.
We'll bring it back shortly. But in the meantime, with Bill Steve too, go ahead.
I'll bring up my copy and I'll read through it. Okay, so we have the lockdown order. Okay. And down here at the bottom, it also has a clause stating non-compliance is an offense or may result in imposition of a sanction, including administrative or monetary penalties. So basically, they're able to lock us down, and if you don't agree with it, they're going to sanction you for it in some way, shape, or form. Okay, now this was named as the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit. So basically what they're going to do is, if they impose a lockdown order, they're going to say, oh, well, if your business is affected by it, you can make an application like unemployment insurance, and we'll pay you for your time. Does this sound familiar to anybody? So the first thing they're going to do is designation of region. Now, I know you don't have the paper up, but they're going to designate regions within Canada. And they're going to say, okay, we're going to lock down one region, but not another. Now, to me, this just goes to show that, number one, Trudeau doesn't like Alberta to begin with. So, of course, I'm going to be a little skeptical on his regional lockdown garbage and make a bit of a statement saying that if he's not getting the cooperation or doesn't like a certain region, he's going to lock us down. And this document will give him the authority to do so. Because remember, back in the first point I made was who can lock us down? A competent authority. Who's the competent authority? The government of Canada. Okay. So they can lock you down by the period set out in the order, which can be anywhere from, a week or 2 weeks or what. They don't state how long that this can last. So that's kind of an open book. I don't know if can you bring that page back up again? Or?
Yeah, let's bring his visual aid back. Thank you. And we'll get into some of this stuff here. One of the things basically we need to know in summary when you're ready is why should people be concerned about C2 and what should we be doing about it? So when you're ready, I'd like you to get to that as well.
I've got some points now. Just so my position on this here, like I'm not the one that has the answer right away. The first thing that I've always done and what I do with fire is that my first job is to educate people. If you don't know what the problem is, you can't fix it. So this is what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to educate you on what's coming. Now, this bill is in first reading. It's not law. It's in first reading. It's got to go through a process before it can become law. So we'll go from there. You got to bring that back up. Am I talking with you? There you go. Okay. And if you want to scroll down a little bit, because I've worked my way down. So scroll down. There we go. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, go. Yeah, right. Okay, so there's what it is. Designations of regions. So they're going to designate regions. So they're going to split us up into different areas. The minister may make recommendations. This is point 2. The minister may make recommendations only if the minister is of the opinion. Now, there's something that you find a lot in law is if they're of the opinion. Now, whose opinion are we going to judge this by? And what kind of opinions has he's got? Did you understand what I'm saying about
the minister may make a recommendation only if the minister is of the opinion that it is in the public interest to do so. So to me, that's a threatening statement because if I have an opinion on something, where's the evidence to demonstrate it's in the public interest? So the wording of this is incredibly concerning.
Exactly. And I'm glad you caught that because that's exactly the point that I'm trying to make. So this is great that you put your input on that. And that I find that in a lot of, firearms law and, whether it's always up to a minister's opinion. Where does he get this opinion? Who's the minister? His opinion may differ from ours, which obviously it does. Okay. So that's something that's very, very concerning. Let me go. Okay, so here it says in section 2, the set out one or more lockdown orders apply in respect to regions. You went down a little. Where are you going? Where are you going? Go back up.
Section
right
2.
There.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay. If so, this is stating that lockdown can go for a period of 14 consecutive days. Now here's what I want to, if you want to just go down a little bit just to this COVID-19 vaccination, this is what really concerns me. Okay.
Is it okay if I read this part? Despite paragraph 1, a person is not eligible for a lockdown benefit if they lost their employment, were unable to perform self-employment work, or had a reduction in income because they refused to comply with the requirement to be vaccinated. So right there, they're saying, no benefit for you for not obeying the rules. For the purposes of paragraph 1, the refusal by the person to comply with the requirement is not a reasonable excuse to have quit their employment or voluntarily cease to work. Okay, yeah, so they're handcuffing people. It's coercion.
This is what's extremely dangerous in this piece of legislation. Those two paragraphs right there is what is most dangerous, because it ties this document, this bill, completely with all the COVID-19 regulations that they're putting in place.
Right.
Okay, so that is what is so very dangerous about this, is because it's all tied to the COVID-19 agenda. So you have to understand that people like you and me that are not vaccinated, we're outside of this. They're segregating us right here in this document.
Okay, that's interesting. They tied that in. I mean, you and I can read between the lines. I just wish everybody else could by now.
So this is what I'm trying to explain to people, is when you see stuff like this that ties it directly into the COVID regulations, you know where they're going with this document. You know what they're going to be trying to do. The segregation is just it's blatantly obvious on this one.
Yeah. So so let's go. Can we go to Bill C2 online now? I'd like to see it. What is the best way for someone to review the actual bill? So
okay, you can go to just look up Bill C2, and it should come up. Okay.
So the Canada website, or because we probably have a whole bunch of analyses of it. But
there's more to this. So let's we'll find you the link. I don't have it just off the top of my head. So
okay, well we'll dig for it here.
Yeah, but it's not hard to find. It took me about 2 seconds to find. So
okay, and then when we talk about Bill C2, is there some sort of connection between Bill C2 and laws on guns?
Loss of freedom, I think, is the biggest one. But actually, let's go through. I got a few more notes there. Let's, if we can go back to those and go through.
So we'll just take note of this website, www.parle.ca. Okay, so that's one place to actually find Bill C2.
Bill C2. Okay. This is the first reading. Okay, so if you continue to scroll down. Okay, now here's something that's really important. Now this is part 2. The Governor General and Council may, by regulation, number 1, now I'm going to go back to the definitions again, amend the definition of lockdown order. I don't know about you, but that spooks me. If they can, as I said right at the beginning, if they can change the definition of a word or a phrase in midstream, it could change the wording or the meaning of the whole document. So this is very, very important.
Thank you for pointing that out.
If they amend the definition of lockdown order, who knows what they're going to amend it to? But my guess is it's going to make it more restrictive and take away more of our freedoms. Okay. So that's a very, very important part. And just one sentence in a whole document like this can be extremely important, and this is one of them. Okay, scroll down some more. Okay, now this is a section that's saying that you commit a violation if you basically lie about the application, yada yada yada. It gives a penalty that the minister can impose if the minister again is of the opinion that the person has committed an offense. Keep scrolling down.
Okay, we'll scroll down more. I really want to know more about the penalties. Amount of penalty. Set the amount of penalty for each violation not more than 50% of the lockdown benefit that was or would have been paid as a result of committing the violation. So you can get penalized for lying, etc. Maximum amount of penalty could be $5,000. Oh dear. And for greater certainty, no penalty may be imposed on. Where is that one going here?
Keep scrolling down.
Let's scroll down
number
again.
5 to the bring number 5 to the top here.
For greater certainty, no penalty may be imposed on a person if they mistakenly believe that representation is true or that they were eligible to receive the lockdown. So sorry for the technical troubles we're having today, Todd.
No worries. We're flying by the seat of our pants. I'm used to this kind of thing, so no worries.
Okay.
Don't apologize. Now, the important part of this particular section, if you want to scroll down some more, is what I've highlighted in red.
Purpose of penalty. The purpose of a penalty is to promote compliance with this act and not to punish.
Now,
sound familiar from any other concepts going on right now?
If that isn't the biggest pile of steaming horse beep that you've ever heard, yeah, exactly. There you go.
One of our reps agrees with you.
Evidently, he does. Now, if you want to just scroll up on that, every time one of those comes up no, wrong way. Keep going down. Keep going down. Keep going down.
I thought we were at the end.
Okay, so this to me was a very important part, is the purpose of the penalty. Mm-hmm. Now, was that the bottom of the document? I think I might have missed something. Yeah, that's wrong. I
think that's the bottom. That's what we have.
Okay, now I made some notes about halfway up, just on top of the COVID-19 vaccination paragraphs.
Okay, so you'd like us to backtrack?
Yeah, if you can backtrack, I'd like to make comments on those as well.
Oh, sorry about that.
So, no worries.
That might have been me.
Oh, okay. So if we can go back to the document, about the middle of the document.
I'll see what we can do here.
Flying by the seat of our pants. Let's go.
Yeah, our tech guy hopefully can accommodate. Or maybe you have the notes and you can explain it. Okay.
Now just scroll down just a little bit more, right there. Okay. Whoa, stop. Okay. So, yep, this is good. This is the 2 dots here. Okay.
Oh, can I read those? Is that okay?
Absolutely, you can read those.
Okay, dot number 1. So these are your notes based on what you read and understood from Bill C2. So paying people to stay at home is socialism on the way to full-blown communism. And it's counterproductive to a free society, as this will make people dependent on the government to look after them. This is the first big step to, drum roll, universal basic income.
Which is where Trudeau wants to move us.
Yeah, and they've been nudging us towards us. And you've been involved in writing, amending, and creating bylaws. So your assessment is you can tell that this has been in the works for a substantial amount of time with lots of advanced planning. It'll cost $7 billion or crazy amounts of money to run this program.
Actually, the $7 billion figure I got from Pierre, an interview with Pierre. How do you pronounce his last name? He's French. Poilievre, the MP.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and I think we all like him. And he asked the question in a House of Commons committee about this bill, and he's saying, "Where's the $7 billion coming from?" And he got crickets from the other side. Literally, for 5 minutes, nobody could answer that question. Where's the $7 billion coming from? Do you have a tree that a money tree? Where's the money coming from? Like, how are we paying for this? When you look at the money that they're going to be putting out, it's preparing us for a basic income program of some sort or another. They're making people dependent on the government for their expenses.
I'm just going to interject here for a sec. As a committee meeting, can we backtrack up to that? On Thursday, the federal finance minister was forced to defend the $7.4 billion her government wants to spend on on expanded and revamped pandemic benefits for Canadians.
That's the one that I'm quoting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so since Monday, the Finance Committee's been reviewing Bill C2. And the committee suggests changes to the bill before it goes back to the House and Senate for final approval. So they're working on this week, but they're hoping to pass it before December 17th. So they're hoping to pass it by Friday next week. And then the MPs are scheduled to break on the holidays. Wow.
Now, if they pass it in the House, it's got to go to the Senate, and the Senate's got to pass it. But you have to realize the Senate is stacked with liberal supporters. The majority of people in the Senate are liberals or their lackeys, as it were. And it'll probably get a rubber stamp going through the Senate.
Okay. You know what, Todd? I'm sorry that I got to interrupt you again. I've already been sitting here for an hour and a half, and I actually need a little break. So we're gonna take 5 to 7 minutes and just run a song and a commercial, and then we're gonna come back. Okay?
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for understanding. So see you all back in just a few minutes. Please enjoy these messages, and please share out this video from Edmonton Freedom Central. When we come back from the break, we're going to hear a little more from Todd Brown, and we'll also be hearing from Tanya Gaw again of Action for Canada. So I'll see you in a few minutes.
I'm not your enemy, but you don't want me near. I'm not your enemy, but I'm the one you fear. Why are you scared of me? That don't make no sense. We've all got enemies, and now what we need is friends. Try to hold on to my friends who have different opinions, victims of the tribalism in the broken system. Sometimes it feels like I've been chasing down a hopeless mission, when it's a crime to have an open mind and see it different. Black and white, red and blue, they split up like a prism. They sow division and we misdirect our good intentions, but denigrating and snitching upon our neighbors isn't doing anyone no favors. There's graver danger. Can they really keep us safe with a baton and taser? Imposing fines on people who dare to show their faces, arresting people for trying to earn their honest wages. Still don't believe that we ain't free cause we can't see the cages. What's the difference? Social distance stuck inside our places, frustrated, casting blame, forgetting what is sacred. It only ends when we can set aside our differences, bring the wisdom in and build the future worth living in. I'm not your enemy, but you don't want me near. I'm not your enemy, but I'm the one you fear. Why are you scared of me? That don't make no sense. We've all got enemies, now what we need is friends. So I'm the enemy for questioning what they tell me? Cover up your face, human connection isn't healthy. We're all in this together as long as we stay apart. 2 weeks to flatten the curve and here we are. Do we really know the cost of never seeing a smile? Can we control the virus with some arrows in an aisle? With stay-at-home orders and lining up single file? Or are we just being naive and living in denial? Is anybody doing cost-benefit analysis? What about the man who's terrified to get dialysis? People missing screenings for diabetes and cancer tests. We act like this ain't hazardous, it's already disastrous. Why? Tell me how could our leaders ever stand for this? Listen to your heart, it will tell you what the answer is. We're the ones facing all the hardships and the challenges. They're the ones who laugh at us from penthouses and palaces. I'm not your enemy, but you don't want me near. I'm not your enemy, but I'm the one you fear. Why are you scared of me? That don't make no sense. We've all got enemies, now what we need is friends. We're all in this this together, but not the way they mean. We're all in this together, and they ain't on our team. We're gonna have to wake up if we wanna live the dream, and start treating each other like our fellow human beings. Separated we are weak, and divided we are conquered. Together we're unstoppable, united we will prosper. So let us stop the usury, strengthen our communities, and build up our immunity through fellowship and unity. I'm not your enemy, but you don't want me near. I'm not your enemy, but I'm the one you fear. Why are you scared of me? That don't make no sense. We all got enemies. Now what we need is friends. I'm not your enemy, but you don't want me near. I'm not your enemy, but I'm the one you fear. Why are you scared of me? That don't make no sense. We all got enemies. Now what we need is friends.
Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to Edmonton Freedom Central. My name is Benita Pedersen, and I'm one of the contributors here at Edmonton Freedom Central, and we appreciate your support. So share out this video, and if it's on your heart to contribute to the continued broadcasting of these programs, please email money transfer to the address below. We appreciate your support if it's on your heart to do so. That's Edmonton Freedom Central at shaw.ca. Thank you. So today's guests on the program are Tanya Gaw from Action for Canada, and she's back. Wonderful. She had to take a break. Plus, we have Todd Brown here as well. And the topics today are important documents. And what we've been emphasizing today is the importance of fully understanding documents of all types. And so what we're talking about here, for example, with Tanya Gaw, she's been discussing notice of liability, some very important documents there. And we've been hearing from Todd Brown. He's been discussing Bill C-2, which the federal government is attempting to push through by Friday of next week. And as we've talked about some documents on other shows, for example, we've talked a bit about petitions, we've talked a bit about a memorandum of understanding. I just want to emphasize to all of our viewers that I know it's tiring, but it's incredibly important to fully understand these different documents, the ones that the governments are trying to shove through, and of course, the documents that different freedom groups are using. Now, I love it that Tanya's here today and we got to go through the notice of liability step by step. So I feel I have a better understanding of that document. But I encourage every viewer out there, before you sign any document, whether it's a petition or whatever it is, that you fully understand what you're signing. Don't just give it a quick read. You have to fully understand. And sometimes you actually need to read in between the lines. Okay. So I'm hoping you folks agree on that. What do you say, Todd, Tanya? Am I on the right track here?
Oh, absolutely. You've got to understand what they are. And some of this legalese, I know it puts people to sleep. Used to do the same for me until one day I woke up and I could make sense of it. I don't know what happened. The light bulb went on or something, but you got to be able to go through these documents and read what's going on. Now, what I explained in Bill C-2 was me going through the document for about half an hour. That was my first read, and that's what I caught. Now, when I have more time, like hours to spend, and I go through it more, I'm sure I'm going to find lots more stuff, because I'll use the references that they have to other bills and to other sections. But, what I've got there, if it's not enough to scare the crap out of you, wake up. Because, people that have been in communist countries, dictatorships, seen them come in, and I'm going to refer to Nazi Germany, in the mid to late 30s. How did they do it? This is how they did it. Now, we're not in full-blown concentration camps yet, but using Australia as a model, they're coming. Now, we have to understand what's going on there. We have to spread the word about what they're trying to do. And then we have to start getting a hold of our MPs, our MLAs, any political figurehead, and go in there and politely go up one side of them and down the other and say, this is not acceptable. Now, I stress the word politely, okay? You know, because you can phone them, and if you run off at the mouth for half an hour cursing and swearing at them, they'll never pick up the phone for you again. What you have to do is you have to build some sort of a relationship with them and say, hey, look, show them all the facts. This is not right. What they're doing is communism. The next step is, you think you have lack of freedoms now? You just wait until they lock you down, like is happening down in Australia.
Yeah.
So we have to learn from this. We have to wake up. We have to spread the word. And the one thing that you can do right now, because this is still being debated, is get a hold of your MLAs, get your friends to get a hold of them, write letters. There's petitions that are going to be coming out against this. Find those petitions. When I see them, I'll spread them to Benita, and I'm sure that she can spread them out to all the viewers that are out here, put them up on her sites. Tanya, I'm
Todd.
sure
Yeah,
that
I'll do what I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to bring this to the attention of our viewers here, our commons.ca is a website people can go to for more information about what's going on in the government. If you haven't been convinced completely by Todd Brown that you should be taking action and doing things right now, well, then just check out that website. You can see the things that have been going on. And I know it can be very tiring to do all that reading. So one of the things that can help is when you share it with a friend and you go, I'm looking at this website today, and you share it with a friend, and then you guys get together and discuss it over coffee to understand it all. Or you invite someone like Tanya Gaw to come and explain a document to you. So now Todd was talking there about pushing back, and he mentioned go to your MLAs, go to your elected representatives, put the pressure on them. Tanya, I'm curious to know if when we're pushing back on our elected representatives, are there any tools from Action for Canada that might help with that process, whether that's a notice of liability or something else? Any thoughts there about pushing back on elected representatives?
Well, it would depend in what context, right? Like, as I had mentioned earlier, prior to COVID, I was doing these call to action campaigns. That's what got me started, is I would write a letter to my MP, my MLA, etc. I'd never done that previously, so it was a bit of a learning curve for me. But one of the things elected officials, conservative elected officials, said to me was that we never hear from the conservatives. And so I wanted to change that. So I started the first letter, researching it and getting it ready. It was something before the legislature, like Bill C-16. And then next thing you know, it was going to the Senate. So I accumulated the lists in bulk for all of the MPs, and then as well for the Senate. And if anybody goes to our website, in the menu under contact, you'll see that it goes elected officials. We've got them all updated for the MPs by party, as well as the Senate. We're working on MPPs per province, because so there's been some changes and stuff, and it's just been a journey. And so then what I would do is I'd write this letter, and at that time I had maybe 12 people on my email list, and I'd say, oh my gosh, do you see what's going on? Write a letter. And they say, well, we can't write a letter and research like you. And I say, that's okay, sign mine and send it. They just need to hear from you. So it became the call to action campaign. And that call to action campaign grew into Action for Canada. And so this is what Todd is talking about, right? Is that our MLAs, our mayors and city councilors, they all need pushback. And so that's one of the greatest things we can do, along with the other strategies. And that's one reason why the notices of liability to elected officials is having such a powerful impact as well. And so I served my mayor and city council back in September against the vaccines. They were going to have posters up in the city, and they're not allowed to advertise for these injections. And so it was just a written one at the time. I hadn't had an official elected notice of liability created until a few months later. But when I did, I ended up getting them all together to the mayor and city council, and I served them all again. Their lawyer from the city actually got back to me. and said, we're not doing any of this. We don't want to hear, have another letter from you. And I'm like, well, thanks for responding and that you got that check, right? I did send it registered mail. And that's one of the things we say, you have to have evidence that you've served the notice of liability. And so that's one. And if you're doing it in person, make sure you're recording that. And so anyways, recently the city manager in Surrey has decided that, all the employees have to be vaccinated. And well, that's just a no-go. So did the deputy fire chief. So now I've got city employees, I've got firefighters who are all wanting to push back. Now they can use the notice of liability for employers while our chapter leaders and the people on our team start serving the mayor and city council. So it is amazing. And then you have to show up to the city council meetings. And you have to show up to the school board trustee meetings because those bodies count. When 100 of you show up and you're unpleased, you got to remember, these guys have been sitting in their little cushy office for the past 21 months, hearing about people's complaints and ignoring them because they're on Zoom, right? You don't have access to them. So they haven't had to suffer and worry about how they're going to pay their mortgage. And, they don't like to have confrontation. And so I had ended up being invited about 3 weeks ago to the Pitt Meadows here in BC. Mayor and city council. He is definitely, one on the tyrannical checklist along with his city council, except for one councillor who spoke up and did a video and sent it out to the public saying, I'm not in agreement with this. And of course, so we show up there, a couple of us, and we were very respectful. I was on a list to speak. Next thing you know, they're shutting it down and we're waiting 5 minutes and 15 minutes. And we're like, what's going on? There's a woman in front of us and we're all distanced from everybody, but I'm not wearing a mask. And all the city councilors got up and left and they're in a back room. And all of a sudden they're kind of looking at me through the glass. And I'm like, and I'm feeling a little targeted right now, right? Like, what's going on? And what ended up happening is the woman in front of us said, who are you guys? And I said, genuinely, I says, we're just, concerned citizens here to express our concerns to the mayor and city council. And she goes, I've been coming here every month, I think it was every week for every meeting for months because she was upset about a CN rail train track or something that was coming through. And she says they have always started on time. There has never been a delay. And she says, can I take your picture? And I'm like, why do you want to take my picture? Right. And so it was just that's how unusual it was for this mayor and city council not to pause their meeting. So 45 minutes later, 6 RCMP show up and we were peaceful. We weren't doing anything wrong. And they were very specific to have us removed. And the mayor ended up quoting as a portion of the bylaw. And so the police were saying, oh, well, we have to remove you. And I says, but I says under section 52(1) of the Constitution Act, which I had just told you, that there is no statute or act or bylaw that can be inconsistent with the Constitution or it is of no force or effect. And of course, these guys don't know the law. They're just following orders. And they thought the mayor spoke. And I said, with all due respect, the mayor is wrong. I have a right to the freedom of speech and to be here. So anyways, it was very respectful, but still got removed from the building. I says, am I under arrest? And they're like, no, well, we're trying to avoid arresting you. I says, well, on what grounds would you arrest me? And I like, please, name the criminal code. And so just challenging them to think about what it is they're doing. So we ended up peacefully moving outside and the sergeant that was there ended up speaking with me for 30 minutes. And I told her all about Action for Canada. She took my card and she goes, I am so grateful to citizens like you because you can do more than we can right now. I says, but at some point you need to make a decision as well and join us. And so anyways, when we're talking about how do we address these elected officials, we're standing outside, the police are gone, and this one, she's all schwanky and everything, city councilor who's having her nails done every week and, has no concerns except for now we've disrupted the evening. And so she's walking out and I says, really, shame on you. Shame on you for doing this to your fellow citizens. I said, we had the freedom to come in and speak. And you shut down that freedom of speech. And so she had to come back. And the next thing you know, another counselor was coming out. She goes, oh, are you harassing me? And I said, I hope you have video of that. Because I said, we've all been very peaceful here. And she started to walk away and complain. I says, I said, if you aren't available to speak to the people that elected you, you have no business. You might consider stepping down. And she was like, maybe I will. Okay, so this is why I'm saying we were respectful, but they're sitting there. They don't want to deal with any kind of problems. And so if we're applying the pressure in a respectful way, they're going to come to the next election and say, I've had enough of this. This is too stressful for me. I didn't sign up for this. All right. So that's one avenue of applying all of the pressure and holding them to account.
Oh, this is so great, Tanya. I just love this. I love it that you have the courage to get up and speak. And what I'm noticing, and we'll get to you in 2 secs here, Todd, is you are armed in a sense with knowledge. Todd, of course, has his background with training people about firearms. But what do you think, Todd, about being armed with this kind of knowledge when you're approaching people and you want to affect change?
First off, I just want to correct one other thing that you said when you introduced me, is that I was an instructor. I'm no longer a certified instructor because of legal hassles. But that aside, Tanya, if I may piggyback on what you've said, this is great for meetings that you go to. I'm a big advocate as well on having one-on-one meetings with MPs and MLAs, and there's a certain way to talk and write to them. And I actually have put together a short course, and I would love to be able to share it with you, Benita, at another time. Invite me on, and I have a document written up that it's labeled "How to Communicate with Your Elected Representative," and I would love to be able to share that and teach that to other people. The one thing that I can say, if you're going to write your representative, MP, MLA, counselor, whatever it is, if I may recommend, the big thing is, do not write a 10-page dissertation, because it will not get read. It'll get put in file 13. Okay. Keep them short, sweet, and to the point. I was taught to keep them a page in length. I say keep them half a page, couple paragraphs, or one paragraph. Make your point. And if they want more information, they will contact you. But that's just one little tidbit that I have in a whole raft of things.
You know what? I could totally relate to that, because I'm getting so much information coming at me. And one of the things I'm finding is if someone sends me something big and long to read, I don't read it. But if they send something short, okay, I got a little time to read it, because there's just too much information right now. Tanya, do you agree on that it should be a shorter document? I noticed that the Action for Canada Notice of Liability is generally 5 pages. So on one hand, it's important to have all the important information. On the other hand, maybe if you're just breaking the ice with someone, then perhaps shorter is better for that initial time breaking the ice. So Tanya, I would appreciate your viewpoint on that.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a different scenario, right? We're living in tyrannical times, and we've got a ton of elected officials who are knowingly perpetuating the COVID scenario. And for them, we're not pulling any punches. We're coming out with the notice of liability to say, because I don't know how I ended up on the email list, but there's one MLA that emails all the time saying, oh, come get your COVID shot, and they're ready for kids. And so I'm saying you're going to be held liable, for this one day. I want proof that we put them on notice, because when there does and may come a time that there may be a trial, or that an individual, did get the jab and it's directly related to something that one of these elected officials did, we want to make sure that we have the documentation to do that. And a one-pager in this instant isn't going to do that. But I 100% agree that when you're just communicating with these elected officials, that's great. But the problem is that I think when you listen to most citizens, they'll say, my MP isn't getting back to me. My MLA won't return my call. I can't go to their office. They're closed, right? They won't create a Zoom for me. And so we're not pulling any punches. And that's where the second letter that I said comes in handy. You may want to just first send them that, which spells out all of our constitutional rights, the charter rights, the emergency measures, and the rest of it. It's about a page and a half, not even a page and a half. And you send that to them and say, I'd like your feedback on this. Open up a conversation, ask them to answer some of your questions, see what they have. If they're not responding, to that letter, either way, they need to be served the notice of liability.
Yeah.
And
Todd,
having an
I have a
impact.
question for Todd right now. Obviously, you've done some work with elected representatives and lots of communication there, and they're occasionally sometimes difficult to communicate with. So what's another suggestion you have to elicit a response from an elected representative?
Okay, great that you asked me that, because that's exactly what I wanted to discuss, and I want to piggyback on Tanya again. Is she's got this 5-page document, and I know I recommended a page or less, but that doesn't stop you from writing out something that's 10 pages long and sending him 1 page every week.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not going to work here.
Okay, so
This notice of liability is official because it will be used in a court of law if anybody agrees to do that. So
I definitely understand. I'm not trying to get into a debate with you, Tanya. I definitely understand where you guys are coming from, and when it comes to legal documents, you need all that information there. I get that. I sincerely get that. Another thing you can do is get to know, and to me, this is actually more important than getting to know who your MLA or MP is. They should know who you are. They should recognize your name and what you're about, for sure. But the person to know in the office is the executive assistant. The executive assistant.
Yeah, that would be helpful. You know what? I could totally concur with that. When you know the secretary or the executive assistant and you've created a bit of a rapport with them, that's sometimes that bridge to help you get the information.
That's exactly the point. Because
to your target.
What happens when you talk to the elected official is that they will take that file and they will shuffle it over to their executive assistant, who will take care of it. So they do all the work.
Build a relationship. Yeah.
So build a relationship.
I'm all about building relationships. We're starting to run out of time here, so we got to get to a couple of things here. So one of the things is, Tanya, I have a question for you. Does the following document already exist under Action for Canada, or could it be produced? Okay, maybe you have it already. If our elected representatives are not doing their jobs, can we issue them some sort of notice of liability declaring you're a failure? You are not representing the people. We're putting you on notice. Does such a thing exist, or could it be produced?
Well, this is where I think I don't know, Todd. Sorry, I don't know you, Todd, and I'm sorry as well that I didn't get to hear what it is you said prior to me coming back on. But I just want to make sure we're not going to have any mixed up messages here. What Action for Canada is doing with the notices of liability is having an immense amount of success nationwide. And when we're serving the notices of liability, we're not there to have a conversation with these individuals. They've already shut the door on that. And at other times, we're opening the door to those conversations. And so where the Pitt Meadows mayor had already closed his door to the citizens who elected him in his riding, we showed up respectfully there that day to try to have a conversation in another way, because he wouldn't open up his door to people within his city doing that. Before we left the building, we made sure that they were all served, the city and mayor were served a notice of liability, putting them on notice that they're not representing the people in their communities and that they need to cease and desist what it is they're doing. That's the bottom line here. The bottom line is that they are committing illegal offenses against the citizens that elected them. Now, the other thing is, then you've got the Maple Ridge mayor. And our chapter leader ended up doing a wonderful rally. He'd already been communicating with this mayor, who we know has his door open to the citizens who elected him. Totally different scenario. And so they called him in advance. The police were there. They did a rally. I think there was like 130 notices of liability had been signed, and all in good fun. The mayor came out. There was like 100 or 200, I think about 200 people who showed up, and they served him. And then somebody else served him. And so he had this stack, and he says, I'm going to read all of these. And we know that the mayor and city council got those. Not only was that the case, but then our chapter leader, who lives in Maple Ridge, ended up asking for an appointment. And so he invited me into this meeting, and it was a Zoom meeting, and the mayor was amazing. He had he had gone over the notice of liability, and then he had a couple of small questions. And you know what? This mayor is on our side. and he's respecting the people. He is not passing any mandate to vaccinate the employees in his city. And so you've got to read who it is that you're dealing with. I know I can't get in the door of my MLA. He's an NDPer and he's horrible, but I do want to make sure he's served and on notice to know that the crimes against humanity that he is involved in, that there's going to be liability one day for him. And so the same with my MP is Ken Hardy, a Liberal MP. He's a definite communist. I actually reported him to the police years ago. And so for myself, the notice, we're not messing around. And we're not messing around with conversations with those who have closed the door. We're serving them. And then we're trying to press back with people rallying outside their offices and doing whatever they need to, still trying to engage them, trying to break them down, trying to educate them, but we're doing it respectfully. And then we've got those mayors and city councils. I've got 3 mayors, no 4 in Ontario, who are on our side. I just learned of an MLA in Saskatchewan. We're going to have a team, older gentlemen that are very well versed on this, that are going to be reaching out to MLAs in every single province. And they've got a whole technique in place. It's massive. It's going to be great. And they want to align with Action for Canada to unfold this. So we've got a very specific strategy in place. And because it's already having such a powerful effect and success, like I wholeheartedly support anything anybody else is doing, but I just don't want to downplay the power of a 5-page notice of liability and that additional letter and the effect that it is proving to already have. Respectfully.
Oh, no,
Thank you, Tanya. I love this.
Yeah.
What's that, Todd?
Tanya, I don't see us as button heads. We're headed in the same direction. We just happen to be on different tracks.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure the viewers understood.
Yeah, no,
that,
absolutely.
Right?
Like yours is a legal document, and the thing has to be served all together. I'm talking about different levels of engagement in the political process, and one of them is writing letters, and that's where I come in to teach people how to write letters. What you're doing is completely something. It's on a parallel track, but you're heading at it from a different direction because you're working with people that are non-cooperative.
I support these tools. Like there's different approaches. So we've got the letter writing, which I've heard people been doing. I've done a little bit of it. And then we've got this service of notice of liability. And I actually witnessed service of notice of liability a few weeks ago. A lady I know said, I'm going to serve. And I just watched her hand over the document, talk a bit with the other lady. And it was a peaceful thing. Anyway, it gets me excited. It makes me want to serve somebody. Before tonight, Tanya, I didn't know enough, but now I want to serve somebody. This sounds empowering. And so one of the questions from one of our viewers was, can you serve a notice of liability retroactively? So perhaps the infraction they committed was some time ago. Can you still serve a notice of liability in those circumstances?
Yeah, if your job was affected because, for instance, you're one of those nurses that was put on unpaid leave in October, and say, you can write your employer and say, look, this has come to my attention that what you've done is unlawful. And then you serve them the notice of liability. And then that further letter says that I am going to come after you for any and all losses that I experience because of your illegal actions. And I am requesting that you reinstate me immediately. You're giving them opportunity to make it right and pay you retroactively. What happens is then if you decide to get on the next step where we're going to file criminal charges against that individual, one, you have proof that you did do everything in your power to make sure that they were aware that what they were doing was illegal. You've warned them, you've requested they make this right with you. And then when you go to the courts, the judge will say, well, you never did anything. So, what do you expect? And they'll say, no, well, I didn't know at the time that they were in complete violation of my rights. And so I did serve them. Here is the information. Then you go back and you also get the letters, the emails, the attachments, the texts, and anything else that you can accumulate. You put it in a file of evidence, you accumulate that, and you would submit that when you file criminal charges against them personally.
I appreciate this so much. I was a landlord for a time, and there came a time I had to evict a tenant, and I found it very interesting, this process where I had to take papers and serve the tenant, go to the courthouse, declare I served the tenant. I knew this tenant was going to continue to be difficult about leaving the premises, so I took it to the next step at the courthouse about a forced eviction, and so there you go, more paperwork that's been stamped at the courthouse. Take it, serve to the tenant. Go back to the courthouse, declare I served it to the tenant. So this to me sounds like a similar process. Someone has committed an offense. We are recognizing that they've committed the offense. We are serving them, and then we are recording that act of service. And this is very, very important when it comes to that track of holding people accountable, because later on, maybe someone like Todd Brown has to bring the guns in. Wink, wink.
Okay, hey, no, you can't be saying that.
I'm being silly, and I just enjoy it that you're
Whoa.
with firearms and you study law.
Well, yeah, and I want to say on that as well, right? It is very effective when you can prove that you are the victim here. I mean, this is what we've seen the government do. They have victimized the Indigenous people. They have victimized the trans people. They victimized the Islamists. And anytime they're victimizing somebody, you better question what the government is doing. They're making out the people in shootings, that they're the victims. Oh my goodness, we better ban all the guns. There's always a reason for it. But when you go to court of law, it's a whole different kettle of fish. Because this is where you have an opportunity. Sorry, that's my 6-month puppy there. I was down with my mom, and now he's up with me. Benny. All right, I'll have to introduce you. All right, so when you go into a court of law, of course, what you've got to do is present the truth of the facts of the matter. And this is where it's very serious that you compile all the information and have it as organized as possible. And so we're very hopeful that this is going to have an amazing amount of effect, because once Canadians realize that they're open to criminal action and having the law actually served against them, this ripple effect will start. Once people understand that it's happening and the word gets out, I think we're going to see a shift in employers, what they will and will not do. Now, the other thing that I can say wherein we know that the notices of liability are being effective is the Premier in Saskatchewan recently, like in BC, said, we're going to create a bill that says that employers aren't liable, right? Aren't liable if their employee, wants to take action against them. That's in direct relation to what it is that we're doing. That's a very good thing. But we still have Constitution Section 52(1) that helps us to say, I don't care what bill you want to pass. If it's in violation and doesn't line up with the Constitution, it's of no force and effect. Right? So good. Can I just answer? I've seen somebody a couple of times, they've said about New Brunswick and we have an amazing chapter leader in New Brunswick, Pastor Ken and Bonnie. They've been chapter leaders since February. They are absolutely taken the Maritimes by force, and they are overseeing all of the new chapters that are happening in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, etc. Anyways, so they live in New Brunswick, and yes, they're trying to say that you can't get groceries unless you show proof of vaccine. This again is where that letter that I was telling you about, the one that says essential and non-essential services, everyone in New Brunswick, please make sure that you find out who the owner is of that store and serve them this notice of liability. And get as many people as possible that if a store is actually going to follow through with that unlawful mandate from the government, unlawful illegal mandate, that you serve them. And then get on on with Action for Canada and be one of those people that's going to press criminal charges against an individual like this for using extortion and intimidation and violating your privacy rights in order to uphold unlawful mandates from the government. They have not been deputized. They are not being paying. In other words, this is slave labor for anybody to be moving forward in enforcing anything that the government has had put in place. They don't have the power to do that. Citizens don't have the authority to do that to other citizens.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And for all our viewers, actionforcanada.com is the website. So make sure you watch this full hour and then watch it again. Tanya has given us a wealth of information. We've heard some great stuff from Todd today. And so, but on that Action for Canada website, what you'll find is it's pretty easy to navigate, but for sure you want to check out the resources tab. I highly recommend that. Resources and training tab, and also the call to action tab. So those are the two tabs to start with. Spend an hour on that website tonight, just reading and reviewing stuff. Look at the sample notices of liability. For those of you who work with unions, I believe there's a notice of liability that can help you. And for those of you who aren't with unions, and I believe there's one there for you. So check those out, read them carefully, understand them, and consider making use of them. Like I say, Tanya's got me so excited that I feel like serving someone. I remember being in a organization, and all I wanted to do was buy a product, and the person behind the counter, even though they had a clear shield, refused to serve me because I wasn't wearing a mask. And so I'm wondering, can I serve that person with a notice of liability? Yes, I can. Okay, well, I will check your website.
We have it down in the business section, right? And that's where I was saying, business owners, have your employees serve you a notice of liability, have your customers serve that one to you. And because that empowers the business owner when the government officials show up saying, I'm getting all this pushback and I could be held liable. I'm not going to lose my business. And so you need to go sort that out with the government. Can I quickly say, yesterday I ended up finally, this is probably my last huge notice of liability. It's against the media. All right.
I saw that one. I looked at that. Yeah.
Huge, because they are what's keeping this going and have all along. There are reporters who are wanting to be whistleblowers from mainstream medias, and they're coming out and say we ethically and morally we can't keep doing this and having these directives from our bosses. So if we start serving reporters, editors, radio station hosts with the notice of liability, that's going to be huge. And I know you want to wrap up, but this is so important. I'm waiting for Rocco to get back to me, because Rocco, anytime that I've done notices of liability, I didn't run the media one by him because everything in the body of it is the same, but I took from the ethical standards for journalism what they need to follow. And it was a bit of a different monster, this one. And that's why it took a little longer to get to plus priorities. On my parent team meetings, and many times parents are asking, I'm divorced, my ex wants to double vaccinate our kids. I'm horrified by this. What can I do? When they go to court, the judges are ending up giving the pro-vax parent control over the kid's health. And this terrifies me. So we figured with David Lindsay, he had made this mention, I kind of ran with it. If they can say there's a Mature Minors Act where children can make decisions at 5 years old to have a jab, then they can non-consent as well. So I've sent it to Rocco. I'm waiting for an approval. And it would be where a parent would sit down with a child and explain to them the harms and dangers of the jab. Even at 5 years old, you show them the VAERS report and saying all these people are dying, and it's the facts. And you show them about the heart problems, a little bit of information as age appropriate as we can do. And then you show them what I'm thinking as of a pie, and the kids that get COVID, which is a really smaller piece of the pie, 99.997% of those kids survive. So how do you get a visual for a kid, but you take a little crumb in the corner and say, this is the risk of getting COVID, but this is the risk of this injection. And they say, I fully, I fully understand the risks of taking the injection amongst the risks of just having COVID, and I choose not to consent to having this injection. And then they put their little paw print on there and sign it. So I'm waiting to hear from Rocco before I launch this, because we didn't go along with exemptions, because then you're buying into that there's something to be exempt to, right? I've just said, I don't wear a mask. That's it. I might use the word exemption because that's just there, but I don't wear a mask. And so we don't want to buy into the Mature Minors Act, but I do want to use this poison against them if we can.
Yeah. I love that. That is so great. The kids can make decisions. What do you think, Todd? What's your thought on these strategies about the kids?
Oh, the kids need to be protected. Like and it was reported on your page as well that there's about 400 children down in the Children's Hospital in Calgary that have had adverse reactions to this shot.
Oh, I'd like to report on that if you.
Yeah, and that is absolutely I'm abhorrent on that. Like, I heard about that and it's being covered up. I just can't believe it. Tanya, you are doing awesome work. Keep it up. You know, I hope we can find some way to link together, to work together in some way, shape, or form. I think we're all headed in the same direction.
Yes.
And I might say that it's been great being here with both you ladies, having very smart, very energetic, and beautiful women to spend an hour with. This has been wonderful. This has been great.
Oh, thank you so much. And Todd, I appreciate you coming on the show and helping raise awareness about Bill C2 and all the reasons people should be concerned about it, and that they should be taking some action in some manner or another before Friday of next week, when the federal government is looking to shove it through. So thank you for raising our awareness to that and helping us be aware of what to be concerned about. So thanks for serving as a guest. I appreciate both of you coming here today so very, very much, and talking about those items of concern for you and bringing attention to those topics to our viewers. In the future, if you have some other topics that you'd like to address, please get in touch with me. We're looking at doing shows like this a few nights a week. This coming Sunday, for example, the topic is getting motivated to take action. And we're going to have more than one guest where we talk about getting self-motivated to take action, but also about motivating and encouraging one another and the different ways to take action. I'm sure notice of liability will be mentioned and other aspects, but there's also other things people can do to take action. We all have a role to play here. We've all got some role. And for some people, that role is front and center like this. I've been front and center at rallies. Now I'm front and center on podcasts. And that's my role. And I'm comfortable in that role. But that role isn't for everyone. Everyone has a role to play here. And we can help you find your role and your way of contributing to the freedom movement. So please send a message to Edmonton Freedom Central. Tell us about your talents and skills and resources, and maybe the ways you would like to help, because maybe there's going to be a Action for Canada chapter in Edmonton area. I don't know. And maybe there's some way you can help, whether that's behind the scenes with technology and sharing on social media, or right in front where you're printing out those notices of liability and you're serving them. And so everybody has a role to play in the times to come. So please start actively participating. So thank you again, Todd and Tanya, for being on the show tonight. I'm Benita Pedersen with allfiredupforfreedom.com and with Edmonton Freedom Central. And we're going to close out now, and we'll be in touch. Okay, take care.
No, you gotta wear it on, honey.
No, you gotta keep it on.
Are you looking for the perfect formula to raise your child to be immunocompromised? Would you like to condition your kids to be anxiety-ridden antisocial freaks? Introducing Trust the Experts. This one-step program will have your child naturally develop mental illness, a weakened immune system, and a spiritual void inside of themselves where a wholesome childhood should be. Who needs fresh air and socialization when you can trust the experts? Let's face it, these vaccines are basically mandatory now. Your body doesn't belong to you anymore, and neither does your children. They belong to the state. Embrace the new normal and volunteer your child for experimental, routine, untested injections for the greater good of science. I do it because I trust the experts. Warning: trusting the experts may cause cowardice, extreme depression, loss of humanity, loss of independent thought, upset stomach, and diarrhea. Hail Satan. It's important to remember you're a helpless idiot. You can't do anything yourself. So keep drinking that beer or wine, scrolling through TikTok, and not really caring about the future of your generation and your generation's children. The government loves you. Don't trust your maternal instinct. Trust the experts and allow today's trauma to last a lifetime.
Wear a mask to school. Hi ho the Dario. I wear a mask to school. It helps to keep me safe.
Is the center of our gravity. Home is not a privilege that is granted by Her Majesty. A home is our right, a place to raise our family. Home is where we go for tranquility and sanctity. Home is where we feel at peace and we can have some privacy, where I can voice my thoughts and nobody tries to silence me. Home is where commotion turns to settling dust. Home is where we raise our kids to be better than us. And home is more than just a house. Home is where there's unity. Home is where we gather. Home is our communities. Home is the connection that we share when we trust. Home is not about me. Home is about us. Home is the guiding light within that we feel drawn to. Home is the source of our creation we belong to. Let them try with their lies meant to pull us apart. We always find our way home cause we know it by heart.
All these long and lonely roads, they wind and bend, they find me friends, they lead me home. And I know no matter where I roam, I'm watching love from high above, I'm not alone.
Home is our cities, our states and our countries. Home is the earth below, the sky above me. Home is the truth we instinctively know, helping us to find home everywhere that we go. But there's many false prophets trying to lead us astray, who want to tell us what to do but not hear what we say. They ignore us while they play their game of righteous pretend, like we don't notice that their rules ain't applying to them. While our children have lost their future, made to cover up their faces, forced to get injections for attendance at their favorite places. Where does it end? When we take to the streets, the government won't call a hearing, they just call the police. And to the faceless stormtroopers, where is your humanity? Just following orders is no excuse for your insanity. It's time to cut the rod out at the source like a cavity. It's time to go home and realize that we're a family.
All these long and lonely roads, they wind and bend, they find me friends, they lead me home. And I know no matter where I roam, I'm watching love from high above, I'm not alone.
Do you recognize this country? Is this the way you like to live? Constantly harassed to put a mask upon your wife and kids. Cops with riot packs who like to act as if no rights exist. Alive, but we're not really living. What kind of life is this? The world is full of risks, but we don't need protection, cause all of their solutions are much worse than the infection. If we want resolution, we need unity, not politics. Why should we trust somebody who's broken so many promises? But maybe this was meant to be and had to happen all along. The cycle's always spinning and it's darkest right before the dawn. It's funny, to the point of laughing out loud, cause what they said would never happen, well it's happening now. And so many are waking up. Welcome to the front lines. The ones who know behind the clouds will always be the sunshine. You and I see through the lies, no longer alone, and let the compass in our souls guide and carry us home.
All these long and lonely roads, they wind and bend, they find me friends, they lead me home. And I know, no matter where I roam, I'm watching love from high above, I'm not alone. All these long, lonely roads lead me home. I'm watching love from high above, I'm not alone. All these long and lonely roads, they wind and bend, they find me friends, they lead me home. And I know, no matter where I roam, I'm watching love from high above, I'm not alone. Take me home.
Oh.